This video provides an introduction to our next topic, and an explanation of the terminology used in Manitoba. For the next 2 weeks, we will be exploring the course question: which instructional practices should teachers employ in academically diverse classrooms? In other words, how do we avoid this situation? It should be apparent that Fred doesn't feel like part of the class, because he isn't part of the class. He is on his own island with an educational assistant, likely doing something very different from the rest of the class. This is what Shelley Moore referred to as the old way, which results in a greater workload for teachers. You will be learning how to work smarter rather than harder. But before you delve into the readings, I think it is important to review a few of the terms you will be encountering. Pause this video and think about what each of these words mean. Are they all synonyms, or do they mean different things? You may recall from the first chapter in the textbook that these words refer to different changes that can be made to address student diversity. Unfortunately, many teachers use these terms interchangeably as if they were synonyms. To further complicate matters, the terms mean different things in different provinces. In Ontario, these are generally referred to as adaptations. However, in Manitoba, we refer to them as accommodations. Manitoba Education created a graphic of these accommodations or instructional supports. The pyramid shape represents the number of students receiving these accommodations. All students should be receiving differentiated instruction to enable them to achieve the expected curricular learning outcome. Some students may require an adaptation in order to achieve those outcomes. Adaptation means a change made in the teaching process, resources, or assignments to help a student achieve the expected learning outcomes. An adaptation addresses identified student-specific needs. For example, a student with a print disability may require information and directions to be presented verbally as well as in writing, and may need to demonstrate their learning in the same ways. A student with an attention disorder may require that instructions and assignments be broken into chunks, and may require a checklist to monitor task completion. You may recognize this as the textbook's definition of accommodation. Basically, whenever you read accommodation in the text, you need to think adaptation. And whenever you read adaptation, you need to think of accommodation. An adaptation and differentiated instruction often look similar. The difference is who is receiving it. If a student has difficulty writing due to a learning or physical disability, and I provide them with a speech-to-text program, it's an adaptation. If I give the class the option of handwriting their response or using a speech-to-text program, I am differentiating instruction. When you are planning an adaptation for a student, it is important to consider whether other students in the class would also find the change beneficial. Obviously, some student-specific changes, such as a Braille book, would not be helpful to other students. However, many other adaptations are beneficial to others. Making them available to the whole class also reduces the stigma of being the only one doing something different. While the difference between differentiated instruction and an adaptation can be vague, there is a clear difference between an adaptation and modification, and only a few students are eligible for a modification. Modification is appropriate for students who have a significant cognitive disability, and refers to altering the number, essence, and content of the curricular learning outcomes that the student is expected to meet. In other words, the student is completing significantly less of the curriculum than would be expected for that grade level. This option is only available to students who have been diagnosed with a significant cognitive disability. Courses that have been modified are identified with the letter M on a student's report card, and it is important to note that a student cannot receive a high school diploma with M-designated courses. Therefore, the decision to modify a course for a student should not be made lightly, and is typically done by the IEP team. The final type of accommodation available in Manitoba is individualized programming, which is referred to as alternative expectations in the textbook. This accommodation is only available for a few students, and again, they must have a significant cognitive disability. You will notice that this section of the pyramid is outside the circle representing the provincial curriculum. This is because individualized programming focuses on the development of skills in areas not represented by the curriculum. Students with an individualized program will attend regular classes, but they will be assessed on their goals rather than the curricular outcomes. Now that you are familiar with some of the differences in the terminology used in Manitoba, read Chapter 8 in Inclusion of Learners with Exceptionalities in Canadian Schools.